The northern quarter did not fall in a single moment. It was bled dry. The last mutant stragglers were hunted through shattered hab blocks and hollow manufactoria, dragged from shadow and ruin alike. They fought without purpose, without cohesion. Only instinct remained. Kill Team Crimson Carapace ended them with disciplined brutality. Bolt rounds barked through the empty streets, blades rose and fell, and in time, there was nothing left to kill. For the first time since their arrival, the survivors of the town could breathe without immediate fear. Engineer Smith guided them back toward the machine workshop, the place where the hell brute had torn its way into reality. The structure stood broken. One of its great sliding doors warped outward, peeled back by impossible strength. Lucais halted. There was a trail. Ash, not scattered by wind, but drawn, deliberate. A thin line of gray-black residue stretching from the site of the warp fire, directly toward the hangar. He followed it without a word. The trail vanished beneath the bent door. With controlled force, he shifted the warped metal aside. Within, something had been left behind. A crude panel, improvised, and at its center, a cube. It glowed faintly at first, then brightly, persistently, like an ember turning into fire. Icarus stepped forward immediately. He did not speak. Instead, he raised one gauntleted hand and drew a slow, deliberate line across his throat, then pointed at the device. Destroy it. Castor's gaze lingered on the cube. Recognition came cold and certain.
Iscarius. He carried one of these before he vanished.
Lucais and Nersus reached their conclusion almost simultaneously.
Detonation risk. Unstable, unknown reaction.
Lucais said. Nersus added,
If it is connected to Iscarius, destroying it blind may be worse.
Ignorance was a greater threat than the object itself. Castor nodded once.
Icarus, contain it,
he said. The justiciar inclined his head. No words, only obedience. A containment casket was prepared. Icarus worked in silence, his movements precise. Seals applied, wards etched, the ritual carried out with grim certainty. The cube's glow dimmed as it was enclosed, its presence muffled. Though not extinguished, it would be dealt with later. Engineer Smith made ready a transport vehicle, scarred, functional, sufficient. The two paralyzed survivors were loaded with care, their bodies broken, but their eyes painfully aware. They would be taken south, to the hospital. The blonde woman insisted on joining them. She knew someone, Gregor, a traveling scavenger, a trader moving between survivor enclaves, dealing in whatever he could salvage from the corpse of the town. If anyone knew who still lived, it was him. The journey south was uneventful, too uneventful. The storm had passed. The warp fire was gone. But the silence that followed felt wrong, like something waiting rather than ending. At the great bridge dividing north and south, the killed team halted. They scanned. Nothing. Then, movement. Lucais saw it first. 14th floor, a 20-story building overlooking the river. Nersus deployed his servoskull. Through its optics, the figure came into focus. A thin man, awkward posture, hair carefully combed over thinning scalp, a glint of gold in his mouth as he worked. He was stacking crates onto a pallet. Nersus relayed the image to his data slate. The blonde woman leaned forward.
That's him. That's Gregor,
she said. They advanced on the building. Castor spoke through the servoskull before they entered.
We are here to speak.
Above them, Gregor reacted instantly. He moved fast, too fast. A tarp was dragged over the pallet, covering the crates. Not caution, not routine. Concealment. The kill team ascended, leaving nurses below to guard the transport and the wounded. On the 14th floor, Gregor met them. He was nervous, but he smiled anyway. A natural trader. Castor spoke first.
Do you know of any survivors?
Gregor deflected immediately, offering salvage, goods, anything he thought might hold value. Castor did not engage.
Answer the question.
The tone shifted. Gregor swallowed.
I thought the North was gone. Wiped out.
He hesitated.
There are 2 others. One west, about 30 kilometres. Another south, 15 kilometres past the hospital.
Useful. But Sarpenthis had already moved. With a single motion, Sarpenthis tore the tarp from the pallet.
What is this?
He demanded. Gregor tried to redirect, words spilling, explanations forming too quickly. Sarpenthis stepped closer.
What is in the crates?
This time there was no evasion.
Food for the Western survivors,
Gregor said, but he was afraid. Lucas scanned the contents. The result came back immediately. Contaminated. The food writhed with a viral agent, subtle, invasive, engineered. Worse, it carried the biological trace of Chaos Space Marine blood. Weaponized infection. Designed to spread. Lucas turned to speak, but the blonde woman moved first. The knife drove into Gregor's abdomen, deep.
You said we could trust you!
She screamed. The sound cut through everything. Castor pulled her back, but the damage was done. Gregor collapsed, clutching his side. Lucais assessed the wound with a glance.
Liver. He will not survive without intervention,
he said. No one moved to save him. Castor stepped forward.
Where did you get it?
Gregor gasped, blood already filling his mouth.
East. Mega Harvester. Brother Iphilates.
He managed. The name settled heavily in the air. One of Lord Malaquance's lieutenants.
He gave it to me. Said I could live if I spread it.
A simple transaction. Life for betrayal. Sarpenthis loomed intimidating. Too close. Too much. The pressure broke Gregor before the wound did. His breath came fast, uneven. Words collapsed into fragments. Whatever resolve he had was gone, replaced by raw animal panic. There would be nothing more from him. Lucas turned to the woman. He did not comfort her. He did not restrain her. He showed her a precise point at the base of the spine, a measured angle, a method, not to end life, to prolong it, to make every remaining moment felt. The woman's hand trembled once, then steadied. She drove the needle in. Gregor screamed, not loudly at first, more a strangled sound, dragged up from somewhere deep and involuntary. His body convulsed, fingers clawing at the floor, heels scraping against the concrete as the pain took hold. The wound in his abdomen bled freely, but it was no longer the center of his suffering. The needle had changed that. Time stretched. The kill team did not intervene. Sarpenthis watched without expression, his earlier anger settling into something colder. Castor stood still, gaze fixed, measuring, allowing it. Lucas observed, not clinically detached, but focused, ensuring the method held, that the body endured. Gregor's voice broke into full screams then, ragged, unrestrained, echoing off the empty walls of the building. He tried to speak again at one point, tried to form words through the pain, but they dissolved into incoherent sound. The woman did not look away.
This is for my family, my friends, my community.
It did not end quickly. The human body is resilient when it is forced to be. Gregor lasted, long enough for the truth to settle into the room, long enough for the act to become something more than reaction. Eventually, the strength went out of him. The screams faded into hoarse, broken breaths. Then those too began to fail. When death came, it was not sudden. It was a release. Silence followed again, heavier than before. Castor stepped forward only once the body had gone still. He searched it without ceremony and found a chain, silver, plain, unremarkable, until it wasn't. In his hand, it shifted. The metal flexed, reformed, revealing its true shape. An icon, the mark of the faithful writ. Castor threw it in the fire Sarpenthus had lit to cleanse the corruption. They went to the hospital, not for strategy, not for war, for a vow. The structure loomed in the southern district, scarred but intact, its upper floors dark, its lower levels flickering with intermittent power. The entrance doors had been forced open long ago. Whatever had happened here had not been contained. Nurses moved ahead of the others as they entered, silent, precise, a shadow in ceramite. The rest followed at distance, advancing methodically through the interior corridors. The air carried the familiar weight of decay. Chemical antiseptics turned sour, mingled with something organic and failing. Nurses signaled, contact. They encountered the enemy in a wide junction hall. 10 of them. Chaos Space Marines. They had taken position as if expecting resistance, weapons raised, armor marked by corrosion and blasphemous sigils. There was no warning, no negotiation. The kill team struck first. Bolter fire tore the silence apart. The engagement was brief and violent. Angles held, lines broken, each brother operating with drilled efficiency. The traitors fought with ferocity but without cohesion. Within moments, they were dead. The corridor fell silent again. They followed the signs. Old markings, faded but intact. Imperial standard indicators leading deeper into the structure. Surgical wards, operating theaters. Lucais led now. When they reached the theater, they found the cages. The room had been repurposed. Where once there had been sterile tables and surgical equipment, there were now crude enclosures, metal cages packed with survivors, emaciated, injured, watching, waiting. The kill team did not speak. They opened the cages. Lucas worked quickly. He moved to the 2 paralyzed survivors first. The mechadendrite extended from his armor, tools unfolding with precise mechanical clicks. There was no hesitation. No wasted motion, diagnosis, intervention. The damage had been deliberate, clean, controlled trauma to the spine. Reversible, given the right hands. Minutes passed in silence, broken only by the quiet hum of the narthecium and the occasional involuntary gasp from the patients. Then movement, fingers first, then breath, then voice. The paralysis broke. Castor watched the moment carefully. Then he turned to the blonde woman.
You will take them north, all of them, back to the settlement,
He said. She did not argue. There was nothing left in her that questioned orders, only purpose. The kill team did not remain. Their path lay east, toward the source, toward the one named by a dying man. They walked for kilometers. The town gave way slowly, structures thinning, space opening, the ground changing beneath their boots. The silence followed them. Then the terrain shifted again. Growth, They saw it before they entered it. The same unnatural flora they had encountered at the crash site. Dense, low vegetation with edges too sharp, too defined. Leaves like blades. Surfaces that caught the light like metal rather than organic matter. It did not move, but it felt alive, watching. Two figures stood at the southern edge of the growth. Chaos Space Marines. Guarding. Nersus did not wait. He moved to position, elevation gained through a fractured structure nearby. The servo skull rose ahead of him, feeding targeting data directly to his display. 2 shots, 2 kills. Neither target had time to react. The kill team advanced. Beyond the growth, the ground opened into a wide clearing. At its center stood the mega harvester. It was vast, a relic of industry now reduced to rust and silence, its bulk dominating the clearing. Its surfaces were layered with corrosion, its structure sagging in places, but it remained intact. Lucais raised a hand. Traps. They were everywhere. Tripwires strung low across approach paths, almost invisible unless one knew where to look. Attached to them, rotting biological charges. Blight grenades. Weaponized decay. He and Nersus worked together in silence, moving ahead of the others, identifying and disarming each device in turn. Slow work, necessary work. When the path was clear, Nersus deployed the servo skull again. The machine circled the harvester. No ground-level entry. The hull was sealed. On the front right side, a steel ladder rose roughly 6 meters to a raised platform. Above it, a control cabin. The windows were thick with grime, visibility minimal. The servo skull pressed close. Inside, empty. Behind the main seat, a door led deeper into the structure. The feed shifted, northern side. Second level, a larger access door, closed, but marked. Lucais reviewed the data. He watched the feed twice, 3 times. Then he spoke.
That door has seen more use.
Subtle signs, disturbance, pattern, not the cabin, the side entry. They chose the ladder. It was rusted through in places, weakened by time and neglect. Each step carried weight beyond its design. One by one, they climbed. The last man reached the top, and the ladder tore free beneath him, collapsing away from the structure with a shriek of failing metal. There would be no easy retreat. The side door opened with a scream. The sound echoed across the clearing as the seals broke. Inside, the harvester was dark. Only minimal lumen strips remained active, casting thin, inadequate light across vast internal spaces. The air was thick, not just stale, corrupted. They advanced, weapons ready. Castor reached the first internal door on their right and forced it open. More cages, more survivors. The pattern repeated. Then, movement. Heavy, deliberate. They entered the main chamber. The scale of it dwarfed them. 5 Chaos Terminators stood within, hulking shapes in corrupted warplate. Behind them moved 5 possessed, forms twisted beyond Astarte's recognition, flesh and armor fused into something unstable and wrong. At the rear, Brother Ephilates, the harvester, had been remade. Its systems no longer processed grain. They refined something else. Vats filled the space where silos had once stood, churning with thick rotting matter. Shapes moved within them, not dead, not alive. Reforming, cultivation, distillation, A plague made industrial. Ephialtes stood at its center like a master artisan, overseeing his work. He did not react with anger. He welcomed them. The battle began. It was immediate and overwhelming. Terminators advancing, possessed surging forward in erratic bursts of motion. The kill team met them head-on, holding ground through force of discipline and sheer resilience. They pushed through, slowly, relentlessly. The tide began to turn, and then it broke again. Reinforcements. 10 Chaos Space Marines entered from the rear, led by a sorcerer. The balance shifted instantly. Icarus was the first of the kill team to fall after taking out a Terminator and wounding another. A Terminator's angry blow caught him full, the force enough to drive him from his feet. He hit the ground hard and did not rise. Luces moved toward him, but the Chaos Marines seized the moment. They closed on Nersus, encircled him. Nersus struck at the sorcerer, but the figure dissolved into black mist. Gone. Then, behind him, Castor saw it, moved, struck. The sorcerer died before the warp trickery could resolve. Sarpenthus charged, straight through the line. He hit Ephialtes with the full force of his power fist, driving the blow into the corrupted Astartes' form. It landed. It hurt him, but not enough. Ephialtes answered. The spiked skull mace came down in a brutal arc, the impact sending Sarpenthus backwards, his armored form thrown several meters across the deck. He rose again. He always did. The plague spewer roared. A torrent of filth and corruption washed out toward Castor and Lucis, but the stream faltered, poorly aimed. They broke from its path, avoiding the worst of it. Lucis reached Icarus. The mechadendrite deployed, stabilizing, restoring. At the same time, he turned and eliminated a possessed with precise, controlled violence, efficiency under pressure. Castor raised his blade, activated it. Wrathful light. The burst of radiance filled the chamber, harsh, ancient, blinding. The Chaos Marines faltered, just enough. The momentum shifted. Again. Icarus rose, moved, closed the distance. His blade struck Ephialtes with controlled, lethal precision, carving deep into corrupted ceramite and flesh alike. The wound was significant. For the first time, Ephialtes was driven back. He retaliated instantly. The mace struck again, forcing Icarus away, buying him space. Then, he reached for something, a cube. The same design, the same glow, the same impossible presence. He began to activate it. Lucis reacted first. No hesitation, no calculation beyond outcome. He fired. The plasma shot struck the cube. The detonation was immediate, violent. A surge of violet energy tore outward, distorting the space around it. Ephialtes' form twisted, bending, breaking along angles that did not belong to reality, before collapsing into nothing. Gone. The blast threw the chamber into chaos. When it cleared, Icarus and Nersus lay unconscious. Castor, Sarpenthus, and Luces still stood, but only just. Luces moved immediately. Stabilization, recovery. Both warriors lived, but something remained. Something the explosion had left behind. Not visible, not understood, but present. When they could stand again, they searched the harvester. What they found confirmed everything. The walls of the main unit were lined with racks. Hundreds of farmers, missing, alive, held in place by crude restraint systems, their bodies saturated with toxins, waiting. Above them, a massive intravenous network fed into the structure. Preparation for infection, for distribution. They freed them, one by one. Lucas worked without pause, treating what he could, stabilizing the rest. They brought them north, back to what remained of the town, back to safety, such as it was. And when it was done, they began repairs on the Thunderhawk. Because this place was no longer a battlefield, it was a warning, and it had to be carried back to the vow of absolution. The Thunderhawk cut through the void at extreme velocity. Nurses piloted without deviation, pushing the craft harder than protocol allowed. The void outside stretched into streaks of distant light, the Gilead system receding behind them as the vow of absolution grew from a distant silhouette into a looming presence. There was no conversation in the hold, only the weight of what they carried. As they approached the landing bays, the Vox link opened. Castor transmitted their identification and the warning.
Recovered artifact. Chaos origin. Contained.
There was a pause. Then the channel shifted. Chaplain Heractus came through.
Change course. You will proceed immediately to Enoch, Shrine of Chapter Master Tigranus Dalir, Theocropolis, Vehementer,
He said. No preamble, no acknowledgement. They did not land aboard the battle barge. They turned instead and burned hard toward Enoch. Theocropolis Vehementer rose from the surface of the world like a monument to judgment, vast, Gothic, carved in stone and faith. The Thunderhawk descended through its upper airspace and settled near the shrine complex, its landing struts striking the platform with controlled force. They were expected. The honor guard awaited them, absolvers in full ornate warplate, unmoving, weapons grounded in formal posture. They did not speak. They did not question. They turned and led. The path through the shrine was narrow and dimly lit, the air thick with incense and the low murmur of distant prayer. The kill team followed in silence, the sealed casket borne with them. They were brought to a small chapel, contained, intimate, prepared. Chaplain Heractus stood within. He was not alone. 4 other chaplains stood with him, arranged with deliberate spacing, their presence forming a quiet geometry around the altar. Icarus placed the cube on the altar, waiting. Heractus regarded them briefly, then his gaze settled on Icarus.
Come forward.
Icarus obeyed. He stepped into the center without hesitation, his movements measured, his silence unbroken. Heractus spoke again.
You have fulfilled your vow of silence. You are ready.
The words carried weight beyond the moment. They were not for the kill team. They were for him.
This is the first act. You will cleanse what you have brought,
Heractus said. Icarus inclined his head once. He took position opposite Heractus. The altar lay between them, the cube at its center. Heractus raised a hand. The guards withdrew without question, leaving the chamber.
The kill team remains,
He said. No one moved. The other chaplains shifted. They formed a circle behind Heractus and Icarus, aligned to the cardinal points, anchoring the space, a structure of will, of doctrine. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, Icarus spoke. The kill team had never heard his voice. It was low, measured, unwavering. The prayer began in that voice, deep and deliberate, and the chaplains joined him, their tones layering over his, building a resonance that filled the chamber without rising in volume. It was not loud. It was absolute. The cube reacted. It rose from the altar, slowly, as if drawn upward by something unseen. The light began to change, purple, deepening. The air shifted as the sound in the room began to distort, drawn inward, consumed. The prayer itself seeming to bend toward the object. Icarus stepped forward, one pace, closer to the altar. His voice did not break. It grew. The chaplains followed. The structure held. The pressure increased. The light faltered. For a moment, it seemed to collapse. The cube dropped, struck the altar. The glow dimmed. Icarus did not yield. His voice rose further, cutting through the distortion, carrying something harder now. Force of will made sound. The light broke, not violently, but completely. It went out. The cube lay still, dark, empty. The chamber changed, subtly, but undeniably. The weight lifted. The air cleared. For a moment, brief, impossible, the kill team felt it. Presence, distant, vast, warm, watching. Then it was gone. The ritual ended. No one spoke immediately. There was nothing to add. The chaplains moved. Orders were given quietly. The kill team, save for Castor and Icarus, were escorted from the chapel. They were brought into the great hall of the shrine. It was vast beyond proportion, its vaulted ceilings lost in shadow, banners hanging in long, unmoving lines. The sound of their arrival carried outward, echoing through the chamber. The Absolvers were assembled, rows upon rows of warriors, waiting. The litany began as they entered, voices rising in unison, not loud, but immense. Their names were spoken, one by one, given to the hall, given to memory. They were led to the dais. Chaplain Heractus joined them there.
Stand,
He said. They did.
honor them.
The response came as a single, unified act. Weapons struck against armor. Once. The sound carried like thunder through the chamber. The side doors opened. Castor entered. Armor prepared for ceremony, marked, acknowledged. Icarus followed. He wore black chaplain's Terminator armor. The transformation was absolute. They took their place. Castor stepped forward. He looked to Nursus.
Advance.
Nursus did, without hesitation.
You have served beyond expectation. You will carry command.
He drew his blade, the power sword he had borne before Mors Noctis. He held it out.
May it serve you as faithfully as it served me.
Nursus took it.
Sergeant,
The hall answered. The ceremony did not end there. A tech marine approached, bearing a thunder hammer. He presented it to Castor. Castor turned, held it out to Sarpenthis.
This suits you better.
Sarpenthis took it. No words, none needed. Castor turned again.
To the apothecary biologist.
He said. The tech marine moved to Lucas, already assessing, already preparing to refine the mechadendrite mounted to his armor. Improvement. Efficiency. Purpose. Then
Icarus!
Castor motioned him closer. He drew Mors Noctis slightly from its rest.
There is a change. A rune. It revealed itself in the battle with Aphilotes.
The two of them examined it together, quietly, apart from the others. Elsewhere, the hall lived. Sarpenthus was drawn away, summoned to the arena below. Initiates waited there, unarmored, watching. He showed them meticulously honed techniques of unarmored combat with a gladius. Nurses found no solitude. They gathered around him, newly inducted, eager, insistent. They wanted stories of battle, of survival, of what it meant to stand where he now stood.